Hello and welcome back to another episode on Let's Talk Football Careers with myself, Barry, and today's special guest, Darren Anderton. Thanks for joining us, Darren. How are you doing?
Pleasure. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, mate. We're in very different time zones at the moment. I believe it's the morning where you are and the afternoon where I am. So, no, it's
yes,
different.
we are living in California for the last 8 years, just by 2 hours south of San Francisco, Monterey, kind of Pebble Beach area. And we're going through a little bit of a heat wave at the moment. I think yesterday was the hottest day on record, 94 degrees. So
sounds terrible, Darren. I must admit, up here in Scotland, we've got a California in Scotland next to Falkirk. Right. It's just like a small wee village, yeah, but I don't think it's quite the same in comparison to you at the moment. But I'll do my wee summary, right, just for anybody watching. And I've got down, you played with Portsmouth, Spurs, Birmingham, Wolves and Bournemouth, a career which spans over 500 professional matches, and you represented England 30 times, including the Euros and at the World Cup. Does that sound all right?
Sounds about right, yeah.
It's good when you hear it all written down like that. Eh?
Yeah, it is, yeah. It's, it's the dream, as a kid growing up to be a professional footballer. So I wish I was still doing it.
I'm sure it's difficult, you're not.
Yeah, but looking back on it, it's really, really nice. And of course, being over here, still get to see all the games, and that's nice. And we actually get to see more games here. We get the 3 o'clock games over here live on TV. So don't feel like I'm missing out on anything.
No, that's not so bad. But could we just start back at your youth, from your upbringing till you joined Portsmouth as a young lad? I believe you played in the Tyrol League for Itchen Saints. Am I doing that justice?
Yes. Yeah, as a 7-year-old playing in under-10s. That not good. I think we won 1 game that league. I think we were all about 7, 8 years old playing in an under-10 league. So it was quite the start. And then a new team was formed the following year. I think Bitton Park Rangers. Bitton Park was the area that we lived in, and that was that was great. And so ended up playing all my school football, youth football in Southampton, where I grew up, and of course supporting Southampton as a kid, going to watch Kevin Keegan, all those sort of great players. I think Southampton finished second in the league that in around 1981, 82 or something. They had a hell of a team, so it was a great time to be a Southampton fan.
But then you were scouted by Portsmouth, I believe. Was that
right?
Alan Ball?
So I ended up playing for the city of Southampton, and that was every Saturday morning. We play against the other districts and towns, and I'd say 4 or 5 on my Sunday team, and probably just 5 or 6, maybe more, were at Southampton's academy as a 13, 14-year-old. And I think I was holding my own with those sort of players at that point. And my dad seemed to think that as well. So when they came and watched them play every Saturday morning, the scouts from the Southampton Football Club, they never asked me to do anything. So I didn't even know, but my dad actually called Portsmouth, and he got a reply. And then off the back of that, they came and watched me play in a game for Southampton versus Eastleigh, under 14s, and thought I did okay. And then a guy came up to myself and my mum, who was watching the game with me that day, and just asked if I was Darren Anderton, and explained who he was. His name was Dave Hurst from Portsmouth. He was the youth development officer, and he liked what he saw. And at Portsmouth, you would go training once a week on a Thursday night. Alan Ball was the manager of the first team. He would come and take training on certain occasions, which was mind-boggling to be taught by a World Cup winner as a kid. Graham Padden, Dave Thomas, who I think was a winger for Everton, great coach, and Peter Osgood. And it was like, wow, I mean, this is unreal. So my upbringing in the game was unbelievable. And I was lucky to get an apprenticeship. I think I was the last one to be picked out of 8. I wasn't sure I was going to get one. I think we had one last trial game against the Navy down in Portsmouth. And I remember Alan Ball being there. And I was playing right midfield. A lad called Darryl Powell was playing right back behind me. He already had his apprenticeship, was already a good player, who went on to play for Derby and Portsmouth, amongst others. Had a good career. And he just kept passing it to me. And I just kept the ball, and I didn't give the ball away in 45 minutes. And Alan Ball he knew my dad because my youngest brother and Alan Ball's son Jimmy played in the same Sunday team. So he just said to my dad, he went, "Your boy's got a chance." And my dad was, taken aback a bit and went, "Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, great." He goes, "He never does anything wrong. He just keeps the ball. He keeps the ball." He said, "It's just a joy to see a young kid play like that." And it was like, and then on the Monday, that was on a Saturday morning. On the Monday, I got the call that I had an apprenticeship, and that was, the start of it. Amazing. I mean, I was so close to not making it. So that's why when people talk about it, I always say, you need a bit of luck, no matter. I mean, there are obviously your geniuses out there and everything else, but and there's so many academies and everything else now, it's probably difficult to not get spotted. But down to Alan Ball, that was where I got my chance. And then turned up at pre-season. Graham Padden was the youth team manager, and I just was flying from day one. He's coaching, the way he put things across. I just loved it. And with it, within a year, I had a professional contract, and I was buzzing. I loved my time down there. And then, of course, I ended up in the first team, and
did you make your debut? You made your debut v Cardiff and as a sub, I believe, and then you made your full debut under Jim Smith against Wolves. Is that right?
No, so both games I were under Frank Burrows, who was a bit of a taskmaster and everything else. But yeah, so my debut went well. Came on as a sub, 1-1. We won 3-1 in extra time. I played pretty good. Full debut against Wolves a few weeks later. Didn't play so good. It kind of passed me by. It was like just a different level. I was like, oh wow, this is. I mean, amazed to have made my debut, but a little bit daunted at just how difficult it was. The speed of the game, the strength. So the rest of that season, I would play 5 or 6 games starting, then I'd be on the bench for maybe 10 games, then back in for 5 or 6. Didn't really set the world alight. And then that summer, Jim Smith came in.
That was when he came in, right?
Yes, and that was the start of 91, 92 season. So that summer, and he came in first every season. He said, "I'm going to give everyone's playing off a level playing field." I think I was a first or second year pro at that point. Second year pro, top players there: Mark Chamberlain, Steve Wigley, right midfielders. That was good. Difficult. But I didn't think I was going to be starting. But Jim was true to his word, and there was myself, Daryl Powell, Kit Simons, Andy Orford, all played in the same youth team together. We were in the team on the first day away at Blackburn. It was ridiculous. And he, of course, that season went incredibly well for us, and we got to the FA Cup semi-final, and all 4 of us as youngsters really, really blossomed.
And you scored a goal against Liverpool that season in the FA Cup, I believe. That was kind of what really got you noticed, I think.
I think that FA Cup run really brought me to the attention of others. Andy Orford, Kit Simons especially, John Beresford, who ended up going to Newcastle, Martin Call to Derby. We had some really good players. And the 4th round we played Leyton Orient at home, freezing cold day. There was a lot of games called off in the 4th round that day because of the weather. Our game went ahead. We won 2-0. I scored a great first goal. Then I scored a 25-yard volley in the top corner. So that night, because there weren't many games that were played, they showed a lot of the highlights of that game. And of course, from that moment, because of the goals that I had scored and how I played, I became. They were talking about me being the next thing. So, and then that FA Cup run we won at Middlesbrough, and I scored a couple, set up a couple. We beat Nottingham Forest 1-0 at home. And then before you know it, we're in the semi-final. And the media day was crazy. Everybody asking if myself and Andy Orford would go and sign for Liverpool, and all of it. And we're like just a couple of kids. And I remember being in the bit, coming out and saying, Orford, like, "Oh, what did you say?" And he's like, "Oh no, I'm happy." Said I was happy here. I'm happy here, which we both obviously were. And then off the back of that, the semi-final, we played great. We should have won the game, lost in a replay on penalties. I scored the goal that, people, still talk about down in Portsmouth, which is great after all these years. And that summer I got the phone call from Jim that Tottenham had made an offer, and Terry Venables was a guy that I should go and play for. I wasn't ready to leave, I didn't think, but it was an opportunity I couldn't say no to. And Jim said, you can't say no to this. This is an incredible opportunity for you. Terry Venables is the best, and will make sure that you are the player that your ability should make you turn into and develop into. And off I went, and that was it. When I first met him, I was so in awe of him. He had an aura when he walked in the room. It was incredible. Just, at that point, I was like, it didn't matter what the contract was. I was always going to be signing. But I did ask him, I said, how much did you pay? And his words were, I paid the full amount. And I was like, oh, okay. Thinking that it was £1 million. And he said it was 2 million. I'm like, oh, wow. He went, no, well, that's what we think of you. So
it's crazy though. It's a lot to take in at such a young age, and that. And I mean, there wasn't the social media. There wasn't, obviously. You went for walking down the street, being able to go into shops to suddenly folk recognising you, and that. It must take a lot. But it says a lot about Jim Smith as well. I've heard a lot about him, and everybody says good things about him there. And he was one of the managers that wanted to do his job, regardless of whether it was the current team. He wanted to make sure you moved on to be the best player you possibly could. And
yes, he want you. He want you to be good humans. He want you to be good players. Play the game in the right way. Work your socks off. It's the best job in the world. There's no excuses. I mean, I always remember him saying, God, it really annoys you when people say about a player, oh, he gives 100%, always gives 110%. So he was like, everybody should give 110%. That shouldn't be a plus or a positive. That should be normal. And it always stood with me. And I think that, he always said, you've got so much talent and you work your socks off, you're going to be okay. And he just gave me so much confidence in myself.
Yeah. So, I mean, with Tottenham, the step up to Tottenham, I'm just talking about players from random seasons here, but I mean, you had Teddy Sheringham, Nick Barmby, Kunzman, Genoa. I've been speaking to Teddy, by the way. He says I have to pass on my regards to you, say that he's asking for you as well.
Where was he, on the golf course?
Usually, it tends to be, he's hard to nail down for a podcast because he's too busy golfing all the time. How is his golf game?
He's good. Yeah, he's boring. He's boringly good, straight down the middle. Takes his time. Yeah, he should be on the clock sometimes, but yeah, he loves it. He's, as competitive as ever. Usually wins the money.
But was he? I mean, the amount of goals that I think you assisted him more than anybody. And
I do remember the that first season. I really struggled. I didn't realize, but I had a hernia operation, or a hernia that was needed an operation. I didn't think I did, or anything. I thought I was okay, but I just thought I had an ache in my groin. I was still, 19 or 20. I took a step up, and take that step up, you got to be 100%, and I wasn't, and I really struggled. I doubted whether it would work out for me there. And then I remember kept getting dragged off, and it was the start of Sky TV and the Premier League. So live games, off I'd go, and then people talk about, oh my God, who is this player? It's not the same player that we saw last year in the FA Cup run at Portsmouth. And I remember getting dragged up, brought off for probably the 5th or 6th time. Terry Venables is, he said, go and have a bath, have a shower. And I went in feeling sorry for myself. And the game was still going on. We were losing 1-0 to Everton. And all of a sudden the door opens and I'm in the bath and it's Terry. The game's still going on. He's the manager. He came in. He said, "You all right?" And I was like, yeah, and I was a bit teary, I think. And he was like, yeah, I don't know. It just doesn't feel nothing. It doesn't feel right. He's like, you're going to be just fine. We bought you, you're 20, for the future, for, the rest of your career. This is all a bonus, playing these games at this moment. He said, and we can see that you're struggling with your groin, your hernia, the one that Gaza had a couple of years ago. He said, you're going to be absolutely fine. Then all of a sudden there was this huge roar, obviously from the stadium. We must have equalised. He didn't even break
Didn't it
sentence. He just
No.
carried on as if nothing in the world mattered but me. And it's something that I'll always remember, as all the good times I had playing under Terry for Spurs and England. That was the one that obviously, you know, it stands out to me as a human being, as a coach, and everything else. And so from that point, I had the hernia operation, came back, and I feel like from that point on, I probably set up, you know, 15 to 20 of Teddy's goals. He won the Golden Boot. And then from there, I really never looked back. And, you know, come the end of that season, they were talking about me getting in the England squad, let alone, you know, me thinking that I'm not good enough and I might have to go back to Pompey.
It's amazing, eh? But it just shows, it's like you say, that element of luck, certain coaches at the right time and things, eh? But no, it's amazing. Then what about, can we touch into Kunzman, please? You played alongside Kunzman. I remember that season. That must have been about 15, 16. And there was it no that they were saying he was diving all the time and all that, eh? And then when they scored, he made that his celebration, I believe, eh?
Right, it was amazing. Yeah, I mean, I think that when he came, I was on holiday in America, and I remember my mum calling or something saying, "Oh my God, you know, Jurgen Klinsmann's, you know, he's signing or he's signed, and he's been on the back of, you know, the chairman's boat in Monaco." I'm like, "What?" And I'm like, I just like, you know, it can't be real. And and of course the World Cup was out there and in the States. Then I went and watched a couple of games because England didn't qualify. And I just now made my England debut. I just remember coming back into training and just being literally nervous to see him, be in awe of him. And from the first minute you said hi to him, he's just the most down-to-earth, wonderful human being. And then you saw him train, and then you're like, oh, this is just great. And then we had Popescu and Dumitrescu. And I remember every preseason game was delayed kickoff because crowds wanted to come and see us. It was magical. It really was. And I was 22 playing for England, and I'm thinking, we are going to be so good here. And it was with Ozzy. You know, I think Ozzy was ahead of his time in terms of the way that we played. You know, like a Pep. But you know, Ozzy didn't worry so much about the defensive side of things. But to play in that team and that entertaining football that we produced with Teddy and Jurgen up top, myself out wide, Nicky Barmby, Illy Dumitrescu. I mean, they called us the famous five back then. But teams worked it out pretty quick that, you know, if they defended well, really well, we were pretty open at the back. And unfortunately, it didn't work out. And Jerry Francis came in, and Jerry was that defensive-minded guy, worked on the team as a 4-4-2. You know, we were always going to score goals. We were always going to be an entertaining team with those players. And it was just a joy to play. And we lost the FA Cup semi-final that year. And that is one of the biggest negatives, I would say, throughout my career. That team should have been playing in an FA Cup final against Man United. That would have been great. But as is football, sometimes in semi-finals, the magic of the FA Cup, you know, we ended up losing to Everton in a crappy game, crappy pitch, Ellen Road. We had one side of the stadium. They had three lots around it. Nothing about the day felt right. And it obviously was a huge blow for Jurgen because, you know, he would love to have played in an FA Cup final himself. So, but to play with him and Teddy, the training every day was just, it's the best job in the world, but you're not always buzzing and looking forward to going to training with different managers. But that team, that season, beginning with Ozzy and then Jerry, was, you know, training became a little bit more structured. It was still just fun. It really was.
It's amazing.
Brilliant. Definitely the season I look back on with the most pleasure, in terms of the team, the players. Being 22, 23, being in London, you know, I'd had that struggle when I first went there. Now I'm playing for England. Everything was just amazing. It was rosy. And then, of course, Jurgen leaves and I end up with the opportunity to go and play for United. And I was loving it where I was. Absolutely loved everything about being a Tottenham Hotspur player, and it wasn't a difficult decision to stay.
No, that was around about 1995. You were on to Liverpool as well, about 6 years after that as well. But you just didn't want to leave, I didn't think you were just.
No, that's right.
So
I think that
there
were definitely opportunities that I could have moved on, and Leeds was one, even Middlesbrough, just purely because of Terry Venables, that I would love to have worked with him again. And then, of course, Manchester United, that was huge. I had a clause in my contract. If someone offered 4 million, I could leave. United and Blackburn were definitely offering it, at least 6 that year. But Sir Alan Sugar did everything in his power to keep me. He gave me a ridiculous contract. Jerry Francis basically said, if you go, I'm going. He'd lost Jurgen. Popescu had gone to Barcelona. Nicky Barmby was pretty unsettled. It seemed like he was going to leave. And I still speak to Barnes and see him, when we come back, and he's been over here. We spoke about the contract offer that he got from Sugar that year. If I'd have known, I would have said, hey, that would have been what I wouldn't be worried about the money I got. I would have been like, let's look after Barnes. You can't let him go either. But he went on and had a great career. So that team broke up, and that was a massive shame.
Yeah, and it's hard to recover for that and rebuild again, But I mean, you did, though, in 1999, you won the League Cup final, I believe,
Yeah, we did. We won that when with George Graham, which was obviously very difficult for him coming in. He came in after Christian Gross. The place was an absolute shambles. It really was a difficult period. At this point, I'm now in between World Cups and European Championships, picking the injuries that I got before those tournaments that were so difficult to deal with and get back to fitness. And then Christian Gross, it was a bad time to be a Tottenham Hotspur player, no doubt about it. And then George came in, and it was great. People talk about his negativity and 1-0 to the Arsenal and all that. I love playing for George. He was a winner. And it kind of summed it up. The only thing I won was with George. Talk about his negativity, but boy, we were entertaining. David Ginola was on fire. He kind of built the team, set it up a little bit that when we played away, sometimes David wouldn't play maybe because he was a bit of a liability. At home, he'd just go and entertain and play. And we were, at home, we would batter teams. And away from home, we would be a little bit more pragmatic and get results. But that year, God, George, when George got sacked, he got us into the quarterfinals of the FA Cup, and we won, and then he got sacked. Then Glenn came in, and his first game was at Arsenal in an FA Cup semi-final, and it was obviously an unbelievable Arsenal team, and we got beat pretty comfortably, even though it was only 2-1.
See that? Can I ask? Right, see the nickname that you got, Sick Note. How much did that affect you? Because what age did you start hearing that? I mean, every player I speak to has had injuries. There's players that have been out a lot longer than you, and certainly never played at a high level. But that must be so difficult. That was when you were starting.
It was. I mean,
the social media side of things as well.
Yeah, when I started picking up the injuries, I think someone had mentioned it messing around at Portsmouth when I was younger. Just because I had a couple of migraines that I missed games, and someone said, "Oh, you got your sick note." But just one of the older pros having some banter, and the media kind of picked up on it. And then when I ended up getting the injury, the year that I could have gone to United in '95, and then obviously I got the new contract, and Jerry wanted to build the team around me. I then picked up the injury, and that year was before Euro '96. So the reality was I was really big news then. I think that A, I didn't go to United. B, I'm now, just done well for England. We beat, in that Umbro Cup, and I played for England maybe 10 times, scored 5 goals, and kind of took to international football pretty comfortably. And then Euro '96 was coming. So every week when the media would speak to Jerry about the game, he would also be asked. They would ask, "When's Darren fit?" And it became big news. And it literally was every week. And I was every week I'd have to say, "Oh yeah, I think it's 2 weeks, 2 weeks." But the rehab and the physiotherapy of the injury, my groin, was horrific, and I never could get fit. And then in the end, I had to go and see, my old physio at Tottenham was Dave Butler, who was now the England physio. I used to have to go from my home in Hertfordshire to where he was in Bushy, and literally in the evenings have physio with him, and then go out running with him in order to try and get fit for Euro '96. So, it didn't bother me then, but then as it went on, and then before the World Cup, the same thing kind of happened, and now it was Glenn Hoddle saying, "Look, desperate for you to be fit," and he had his physio, Masseur Terry Byrne, treat me, take me out running, get me fit for the World Cup, and it was so my mind was so focused on being fit in any case, and you kind of need the right treatment in order to get back to play a Premier League game, let alone stay fit. So, but then when that sort of thing started, it would be every time I re-injured or had a setback, the headlines were sick note. I think in the end, I ended up then not even saying that I was struggling or wouldn't let people know, and I would end up playing with more and more injuries, and in the end I would make it 10 times worse. Yes. So now when I look back, I definitely there was some really dark times with that, because everything to that point up to I was 23, 24 was just so positive, from Portsmouth all the way to playing for England. And now there were these negative things happening to me, and I didn't know really how to deal with it. Or I thought I was dealing with it, but in hindsight, I probably wasn't. I used to, just be desperate to play. Desperate.
And when you did pick up an injury, you took it more to the head.
Yeah, and then I think, and then in the end, I ended up just not saying anything about it when I picked up injuries or felt some pain in my groin, and they were recurring injuries, so I was really doing further damage to myself by playing and training with them. So, and then Christian Gross came along, and he then said it was all in my mind, and I was like, I knew I tore my groin, and then he made me play in a game with a torn groin, and I was like, and then Jurgen came back. Jurgen comes back. And and after we played at Villa at Christmas, when Christian Gross said he was doing me a favour and let me go on the bench and not play from the start because of my groin, but then we're losing 4-1, and he still put me on the last 20. So I remember just going in and saying to the doctor, and then Jurgen came back, and I said, "I'm having a scan." Yeah, because we're playing Arsenal in 2 days, and obviously you want me to play. I want a scan. If it shows it's all right, I'll play. If it doesn't, then obviously I can't. Obviously, I went and had the MRI, and there was blood everywhere. It was a huge tear. I remember when Jurgen came back and sat with him in the dressing room, and he went, "Oh, this is." And so he literally picked up the phone, spoke to Alan Sugar, and said, "What's going on here? What are you guys doing to Darren?" He said, "I'm sending him to doctor, my doctor in Munich." And from that point on, I then had someone I could trust as a doctor.
And that's what you needed, then.
And it was the best thing, and thank God, Jurgen came back solely for that reason. That from that point on, I ended up playing football again on a consistent level.
Just shows it, but I think it's like you had the big contracts in your time. You had Sky being involved. You had everything that came out, but you never had the sports science. You never had the sports psychology. You never really had the protection that the players get now either. Like you were played on me, and then you told to play. There's nothing wrong with you. You could sue somebody for doing that. It's so different.
For myself, I needed to be told, "No, you're not playing." I didn't need to be pushed. I wanted to play. I was desperate to always play, and I played obviously with a lot of injuries. But now, they got the heart monitors. They can see how they can. It's almost like they can read how your body is. to prevent injuries in the first place. So things are differently, and things are great now, but there's still injuries, and lots of them. I mean, the game's got quicker, the pitches are, they're harder because of the because they're so perfect, like bowling greens. So it is, it still happens, but the treatment and the difficulty for me in terms of in my mind with that was they were reoccurring injuries, so they weren't getting better. And once that happens 2 or 3 times, you don't see them ever getting better, and that becomes that takes some pretty dark places.
Yeah, and you're waiting on it happening all the time. As soon as you get a wee muscle pull, you're saying, "Here we go again," and it gets a bit. But no, it's brilliant. Thanks for sharing that. So, what was your best goal for Spurs? Then, what would you say was your number one favourite goal for Spurs?
I think that I think the Leeds goal in an FA Cup game, when we in the FA Cup game, I scored the first from about 35 yards with a bit of fade. FA Cup replay. George had come from Leeds to us. I think it was a quarter final or last 16, and it was a White Hart Lane under the lights. I just called it so sweet, and it did exactly as I was trying to do. I aimed it outside the post, faded it back in off the post. It was a pure strike for sure. That one I always look back on and enjoy.
That's brilliant. So one thing I do find bizarre though, right? And correct me if I'm wrong, but you didn't have a testimonial, did you?
No, I didn't. No, I think that was something that was always supposed to happen. It was offered to me, but when it was first offered, it was offered at a time frame when the team when the first team were off in Asia doing an end of season tour, so it wasn't really done. They didn't do very well with that, I don't think, but it's fine.
The fans were the same. The fans tried to get a testimonial arranged for you, I'm sure, a few years.
I think so, over a few times and over years. I just always thought that growing up, that the idea was that if you stay with a team for 10 years, that the clubs show their appreciation by arranging a game for you. But I feel like when I spoke to Daniel about it over the years, he just, we did a couple of run-ins, and he said, no, I wish I had done things differently when you left the club. B, he felt that should have been down to my agent to arrange for people that come and arrange and do that for you as such. So he kind of passed it on to my agent, and he's it's fine. I would love for it to have happened, because when I left Spurs, I never went back there and played a game again for another team, so I never had that opportunity to thank them for that. And I played in Ledley's testimonial, and it did make me think, God, this would have been lovely.
But as what is it? I mean, you've got so many highs in your career. I've not even came onto your England career, which I promise I'll get to, but I broke that down separately. But the current Spurs setup now, that must be a hard watch. I mean, God, so tough. And I think a lot of it comes down to, for what I'm looking at, is there's the DNA for the club's away now. It's not quite, you've not got the same people there that are Spurs through and through, teach you the ethos of the club and guide you along. And I think that's what's missing a wee bit. But it's a hard watch and a struggle.
It's a real struggle. It's of course, I played there for 12 years. That I consider that to be my club, the club that my football career was all about, as much as I enjoyed the other teams. But to see them struggle like this, and to see players not really at it, and not being good characters, and being a bit playing when they want to play in a game that's easy, but then when it really matters, I don't know. It's tough to watch. I feel for Thomas Frank. I feel for the managers. The reality is we've lost players in the last few years that top draw. Harry and Son, just to name a couple. But from where they were under Poch to where they are now, should never have happened. And I think that does. I think Daniel was. He got that team together as such, and got a little bit of luck by getting Poch, and then the young players that came through, your Dele Allis and Harry Kane and Carl Walker and Rose, and there's so much talent. The players we brought in, Ericsson, Toby, Jan, like what a team. Bele, I mean, wonderful team to watch. So to see them go from that and the Champions League to where we are now, it's very, very sad, and it's going to take a long time to get back to where they were.
Yeah, I think this season, if they can just focus on surviving this season, regroup, and then go for next season, I think
that's all that matters. I think that over the it's the dynamics and the setup of the club has to change. The wages have to get better. Hey, they all earn great money. Don't worry about that. But if you want to be a Manchester United, a Manchester City, Chelsea, whoever it may be, even Arsenal now, right? Great team. You've got to pay the wages.
Yeah,
it's as simple as that. And I think that and if you don't, the top players won't come. They'll go somewhere else. And we got lucky because those young players that I'm talking about were on good wages for young players, but they weren't on the best wages in the Premier League. And that will always be a problem. The best players in the world want to be paid the best. They want to be rewarded for how good they are, and will go and play wherever they can get that. So and right now, you're right. Relegation is a real threat. And of course, we've had a pretty good week, a great point at Liverpool. Showed a performance that was 10 times better than we've seen. Then, of course, the Madrid game, Atletico last night, was a great game. And, they had a right go. And with a little bit
and they're a good side, them. I mean, a good side, Atletico. I mean, they go under the radar in Spain a wee bit, but I mean, the two they've got up front, it was Alvarez and I'm trying to think who the other one was. They had up front as well. Brilliant team, and it's not a disgrace getting beat by Atletico Madrid, but I think because where we were 2 years ago, they then come back down again. But no, well, have you got a wee message for the Spurs fans just before we move on?
Oh, yeah, well, I love the Spurs fans. I love how good they were always to me from that first moment I joined. When the media got on my back, the fans didn't. They stood by me and could see I was struggling, and they helped. And they really, they were the main reason that I ended up staying there for so long, for 12 years. So I think the team will be all right. And I think it's a difficult one. The fans are really frustrated, and they let the players know it. The players have got to give them something to shout about, something to be positive about, and they did that last night.
Yeah,
and that's it's a vicious circle. And as players, you always look at the crowd, and go, "Oh my God, they're they're so negative or whatever." You got to give them something to shout about. Give them, and they did that last night, and that's what they got to do at the weekend against Forest. Because if they start messing around with the ball on the edge of their own box and making the crowd get edgy, they're bringing that pressure on themselves. Go out and play in their half and get about them. It doesn't have to be route one as such, but squeeze the pitch, go and close down. Press. Let's really make the stadium rock.
Yeah, and get the first goal. That would make a massive difference. You get the first goal. But can we just touch into you were at Birmingham for a season. Who was it that signed you at Birmingham?
Steve Bruce.
Was it Steve Bruce? I've got because I've got him coming on next.
Oh, I'm speaking to Bruce next. Say hello to him. I love him. I love my time there. For some reason, he used to think that Robbie Savage and would be a better fit in the middle of the park. So even though I used to nutmeg him every day in training. So, but the gaffer liked to set his team up to be difficult to beat, and he wanted me to play out wide, and I wasn't quite the player I was at Tottenham, I would say. So my time there was really, really enjoyable. But I'd missed enough football through injuries that I didn't want to waste my time sat on the bench at Birmingham. And then, I played a lot, but it was probably 50% of the time starting, 50% on the bench. And I wanted more than that. I wanted to play all the time. So in hindsight, I made a big error going to Wolves. I should have stayed at Birmingham. I love the club. I love the players. Loved Brucey. It was, and I didn't know any different. I'd been at Tottenham for 12 years, and it was really, I don't think humbling is the right word, but the players were great lads. Great lads, great team. We had Kenny Cunningham, Matty Upson, Robbie Savage, Dwight York, Emil Heskey,
Some
Dan
players,
Lazaridis, like Kenny Cunningham, great captain, Stephen Clements, Muzzy Izzet, David Dunn. You know, a core of English lads, and it was, you know, the Premier League was changing, and at Spurs especially, you know, lots of foreigners that came in, some good, some not good, and but Birmingham had a great team mentality, and it was, I loved my time there, but I felt I had to play, and so I made the decision
You're
to go to
32,
Wolves.
33 there, eh? You're 32, 33-year-old there, eh?
Yes.
And was it Glenn Hoddle? Sorry, was it Glenn Hoddle that brought you to Wolves?
Yes.
Yeah, Wolves, aye. So
that's why I went there, and I just, you know, he understood the problems I had with the injuries and all that sort of thing, and I just thought, go there in the Championship, you know, should win that and get back up, but it just didn't turn out that way. Glenn wanted to play me played me 4 or 5 games, go, oh, maybe you need a rest, and he knew better than that. I needed to play week in, week out, and I just hated it. I still lived in Birmingham, drove an hour a day to go to training, and that in itself wasn't ideal. So, you can tell, Steve.
You feel like you've lost.
I wish I had stayed.
Yeah, you've lost a year there, eh? Your career, and it's only now when you look back. But you went to Bournemouth. I mean, this speaks for itself because, I mean, regardless of all these big contracts you had, am I right in saying you were on a pay-as-you-play deal with Bournemouth as well? Eh?
When I first went there, I was it was definitely I was definitely not going there for the money. No. I had lost my love of the game, being at Wolves, no doubt about it. I just wanted to play. I wanted to go home. I wanted to go back because my dad wasn't well. He had emphysema. I wanted to be near him. And Bournemouth was perfect. Great little football club. Beautiful part of the world. I had a home there. And it was like going back full circle to where I started at Portsmouth. I had to clean my own kit, boots, the whole thing. It was so humbling. Playing with young lads. Bournemouth always created good players, played good football, and I thought that would be perfect, and it really was. It was. Yeah. I still have so many good friendships from my time there. It was really difficult at times with the financial situation down there, with them, being docked 15 points one year, then 10 another year, and it was like so difficult. And to see them where they are now just gives me so much joy, and I'm so pleased for them. It's one of the best stories you could ever wish to.
Club that really deserves to be where they are. They're in the right place.
They really do, and I love their manager, and I wouldn't want to poach him for Spurs, but that's who I would have at Spurs if I could.
Right, just it's amazing. Well, I mean, that was rounding up your playing career, right? So if we could touch on England, right? So you tie it in perfectly. I'm getting good at these interviews, by the way. But you linked it in perfect. You mentioned your dad, right? So you made your debut in 1994. Terry Venables gave you your debut. So right, go and talk. If you could just talk how all that came about, how you tell your family they were at the game, etc.
Well, yeah, no. So that season I had a great season personally with Aussie, and but the team were really struggling, and because Teddy picked up an injury in around October, November, and we were doing good, and we just couldn't score goals. I mean, Teddy was supposed to be out for 2 weeks, and it was another 2 weeks. It ended up being 4 months, and before you knew it, we had gone probably 8 weeks without winning a game around Christmas and everything else. So like, we were started looking down as opposed to up. Luckily, Teddy got back, and we ended up being fine. But off the back of that, Terry Venables was named England coach. We didn't qualify for World Cup 94, so in came Terry, and the first game was Denmark. There was a lot of talk about who would be in it, and my name was it was thrown in there a lot with how I was doing. And then I got the call. So it was still the weirdest time, which sums up football. My brother had been released by Portsmouth as an apprentice, came to Spurs on a trial. We were playing, and he was there for the week. At the end of the week, he was playing a game in the youth team. I was playing at Chelsea on the Sunday, and on the Saturday we're training, and I my brother's over there playing for the U team. There's a bit of a commotion I hear, and it looks like someone's down in the middle of our training. So Ozzy and Stevie P were like, oh, went and had a little look, and it was like my brother who, but literally broken his leg, fractured it in 2 parts. So of course off I went to the hospital with him. Stayed with him the next day. Chelsea away, go and play that game. We ended up losing 4-3 in a crazy game. I remember the next morning getting the phone call, I'm in the England squad. As I'm on my way driving to the hospital to see my brother. So they wanted to interview me, and I'm like, well, I'm at the hospital, I'm going to see my brother, and they were like, okay, we'll come there. So we ended up doing an interview with me and my brother, and it just summed up football to me that, 2 brothers, this is what can happen, slide indoors and all that. And it just, I was able to, he had a little interview, he's gave him a bit of a smile on his face, and, he's pleased for me, obviously. And then a week later off I go and, join up with the England squad, and being nervous as hell, and all the players, then getting there, and as soon as you get there on the Sunday night, Dave Seaman and Tony Adams were in the bar and called me in, and in I went, and 5 or 6 Guinnesses later, all the players are in there having a nice little drink. Waking up the next day to go train for England with a little bit of a sore head, and it was perfect. I mean, I felt part of it. It was crazy. And then the morning of the game, Terry picks the team in a meeting before going off to training. I'm in it. I'm starting. I can't believe it. And he says to the guys, hey, be on the bus in 10 minutes in case anyone needs to, call the family or whatever to let them know that they're playing, not playing. And I think he knew he had me in mind with that, knowing me from before, and obviously knowing my family, and he probably wanted me to go and speak to them and tell them. So it was such a nice touch. Went and told them. We did training, slept for a couple of hours in the afternoon. Then my door knocks. I think it's tea and toast coming around. Nope, it's Gaza. So I was like, oh shit, what's he gonna do? And he came in, he went, oh, you got a shaving? I need a blade. And I'm like, and at that point, I don't know if I was even shaving. I'm like, oh, no, I haven't, sorry. He's like, oh, okay, well, how you feeling? And he just started talking to me. He goes, I want you to enjoy the night. He said, you belong here. Do not let it pass you by. Take it all in. He said, I can't remember my debut. I said, it's just a blur. I said, but you just enjoy it. It's the best. It can only happen once. You're going to be here for a long time. You're going to play for England so many times, but this is your debut. He said, Terry bought me. He bought you. We're both here. And this is when he was literally the most famous player in the world. So it was like the nicest thing.
Good,
we all love Gaza for so many different reasons. But that moment, I was like, oh, wow, he didn't need to do that. And I went out there and, I started the game, pass. And then within 20 minutes, I felt great, and I just was buzzing, and I think one of the best games of my career, and I'll never forget it. It really was amazing, and my family, and seeing my family afterwards. And I remember being in the players' lounge, and Terry walked in, and he just walked in, and he went up to my mum and dad, and he went, I told you you'd be all right, didn't I? And I was like, oh my God, love him, just love him.
That's absolutely awesome. And you made it up to Gaza though, because you assisted. This seems it seems to be forgotten about, especially Scottish. We try and forget about this, but the flick over, you actually played the ball through to Gaza.
Right, that's it. Yep, I'll take the assist. It was, what a minute that was. Gary McAllister's penalty.
Yeah.
Goal kick goes up the other end. Teddy knocks it to me. I can see Gaza making his run. Don't need to control it. First time pass, and then the rest is history. I'm
watching that. That must be so surreal. Okay, right, you're up there, you're playing with England, you're one of the lads, you're clearly at that level. But at that moment, you're going to be able to still remember it, assisting that pass, and then just watching it for what, 20 yards, 30 yards away. Brilliant,
Yeah, it was definitely a highlight moment of my career to be part of. And people obviously talk about it, and people have so many memories of Euro 96, of that goal. the amount of people that come up to me and say, "Oh my God, yeah, I went to Euro '96," and they didn't even forget that I was even playing. And they were like, "Oh yeah, and Gazza's goal and this and that." He goes, "You know, were you there?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I passed the ball to him." And they're like, "What? What?" I'm like, so it's hilarious. And that obviously changed the tournament for us as well. The game, you know, we were terrible in the first game. Then a piece of magic from Gaza, just, you know, the whole stadium started singing "Football's Coming Home," and it was a magical summer that, you know, looking back on it, just love it still. But you know, we really should have won it, and what would we be? You know, we'd have been heroes if we would have done.
Scary, yeah. And I mean, you played in the game as well. Did you? Was that the year that England played Holland?
It was a game where we got the result, and the magic moment from Gaza to now a performance that is still talked about as one of the greatest ever England performances. It really was magical to be part of.
Yeah, it was brilliant to run back through. But you also scored in the World Cup, France, in 1998. That was a goal against Colombia, I believe. I mean, see now, when you look back and thinking I've scored the World Cups, I've scored in the Euros, it must seem so, because you're very humble, I can sense that.
Well, yeah, and I think living over here, I think people kind of sometimes don't realise, so that kind of makes us, with myself and Audrey, my wife, were talking about it this morning, like some of the things that I kind of look back on, and she's like a little bit like, oh, it's just nuts. And it's so, and that for me, obviously, as an individual moment, you know, Euro '96 as a summer was just incredible. But as in an individual moment, of course, that goal, you know, it kind of stands above everything else as a moment. And in a game where, you know, people are speaking about that tournament and Bex didn't play in the first two, and was I playing in front of him? Was I not? Was he going to play centre midfield? And Glenn always wanted us both to play, I think. You know, we were both wide players. We both really wanted to play centre midfield. We wanted to be involved in the game, and he just felt like we could interchange very easily. And that was the game where obviously he decided to do it, and it worked out perfectly. And we won 2-0. I scored the first, Beck scored the second. We both played great. And yeah, and both pretty good goals as well.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Eh? It's great when you look over it. One thing I do need to touch into, right? I was doing my research on you on that. Is it 1995 that you scored an absolute banger where you hit the post, hit the other post, and you see the keeper looking and the ball's in before they...
Yes, I do remember that. Actually, that was right. We were 3-1 down with Sweden at Ellen Road with a minute to go. And then Gaza comes on, I think, we've been on the last 10 minutes. He chips one in for Platty to score, as Platty would always score, and then goes up the other end. You think the game's over, and then, you know, Graham Maslow launches it forward, Teddy on to Shearer, and then he nods it back into my path. And it was rising. So it wasn't like it was perfect. I literally felt like I had to do the Karate Kid motion in order to get up and hit it with, you know, left foot, which is my weaker foot. And I never caught a ball like it in my life. And the dramaticness of it being the last minute, going in off both posts, was just unreal. I was like walking on clouds. And I remember after that game, you know, everyone was talking about me and United. Gary Palace was saying, you know, can I give your number to Fergie and all that? Like, this is getting ridiculous. And I remember them being in pre-season the following summer. We in Sweden, and we played against the keeper in a pre-season game. And I remember one of our teammates literally just grabbing him and like pointing at me. He went, "Is your neck all right? Have you still got whiplash? Have you still got whiplash?" It was like, oh my God,
it's amazing though. Eh?
Great
to look back on it. See a stat, right, that I love, and you've heard it before. You probably know where I'm going with this, but I've put down notable stat. Your last 5 England caps will be 5 different managers, and that goes with Glenn Hoddle, Howard Wilkinson, Kevin Keegan, Peter Taylor, and the late Sven-Goran Eriksson.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy. And I think that's, you know, around that time of obviously injuries and things like that were plaguing me. But, you know, 2 of them were interim managers, obviously. But yes, that has been a stat and a thing that people have often told me, or on quiz shows and everything else, every now and again. But it is an amazing stat. it was kind of crazy because I ended up having 30 caps. 28 with them as my first 28 was starting, so as I would say were proper caps, and you know, I feel like they get given out a little bit too easily these days. But that was definitely interesting, and kind of summed up that that I didn't, you know, the games that I did miss, you know, in the peak of my career, but Euro 96 going on to maybe, you know, 2000, 2002. You know, I missed a lot of England games.
Aye, and it's like you say, it's a shame because you could have went on to have, but I mean, what you had and what you've got, you can look back on, and you can't take the memories away. It's brilliant. Could I just before we round up, the World Cup in America? I mean, how's the buzz around California? I mean, what's the people like?
Pretty good. I mean, honestly, myself, I'm absolutely buzzing for it. Our son 4 is Jack. He's 4. He's going to be 5 come the summer. So I've already been in touch. You know, we're going to go to the games. We're going to go to Dallas, then go on to Boston, go on to New York, and then go down to Florida. Hopefully, England get to the quarters in Miami, and we're going to make a right little summer of it, little family summer trip around America. To have and follow the team. I'm really, really excited for it.
Yeah, and then you can get tickets for a final when Scotland win it as well.
I know. What about that? Oh my lord!
I'll be interested to see how it goes. Just lastly, then, Dan, could I get you to name your best 11 players you played with? Just pick a formation.
Wow, to play with.
I
always feel like it changes, but it's probably who would I have in goal? Dave Seaman was very good goalie, really good. Right back, oh my God, Gary Neville, different class. Centre backs, I feel that's a difficult one. Sol was obviously Sol, Ledley, Tony Adams. It would be 2 out of those 3. As defenders, Sol and Tony Adams were just ridiculous, I think. You know, as a left back, Stuart Pearce was unreal. There, I mean, middle of the park, Gaza, Scholesy, Gaza, Scholesy. You know, you got out wide, you got Ginola on the left, Beck's on the right. Up front, you got Teddy, you got Jurgen, you got Shearer, Ed Slate. When I think, I was very lucky and blessed to play with some incredible footballers. Chica Popescu, I didn't include, was unbelievable. Could play anywhere. I feel like Gaza and Scholesy, you just have to have in there, you know. Teddy, I mean, just that season, Teddy and Jurgen up top, unbelievable, you know. Really, really.
Well, listen, Dan, I really appreciate it. I really appreciate your time. Really appreciate you going through everything. I hope everybody.
Thank you for having me.
Doing it. It's been fantastic. No, thanks very much, Dan.
Cheers.